지금 하이제킹 상황이야.
지금부터 이 비행기 이북 간다.
즉시 남쪽으로 도내하라.
이거 놓치면 터친다.
The movie Hijack 1971 is based on a real-life hijacking incident involving a domestic Korean air flight in South Korea. The story begins when armed passengers suddenly hijacks the plane and forces it to change its route from Gimpo Airport to North Korea, putting all the passengers and crew in serious danger. The co-pilot Tae-in, who is a former Korean Air Force pilot, has a past connection to a similar hijacking incident in 1969, which caused him to lose his job. On 23rd January 1971, he faces another hijacking situation, but this time as a co-pilot. After the captain is injured, Tae-in must take full responsibility to protect the 39 passengers and the crew members on the board. The hijacker Yongdae is a former prisoner who was labelled as a traitor to the nation due to his connection with North Korea. He is inspired by a previous hijacking incident involving his brother and believes that if he successfully lands in North Korea, he will be rewarded with money and treated as a hero. As the situation becomes more intense, the movie shows a struggle between fear, control and survival as everyone on board fights to stay alive and prevent the plane from reaching North Korea. Next, I will explain two main stakeholders in this movie. The first stakeholder is the pilot and cabin crew. They are responsible for handling the situation and ensuring the safety of everyone on the board. The first step is responsibility to protect passengers' lives. The crew takes action to protect passengers, such as providing first aid to injured individuals after the explosion. They also make difficult decisions like instructing passengers to destroy their identification if the plane lands in North Korea to ensure their safety. The second step is professional duty and reputation. The pilot and crew must handle the crisis carefully and responsibly. They face a dilemma whether to follow the hijacker's instruction or to outsmart him. The second stakeholder is the passenger. They are ordinary individuals who are not involved in the conflict but are directly affected by the hijacking. First step is safety and lives. The passenger need to live at risk during the hijacking. Some passengers attempt to fight the hijacker but end up getting injured, showing how dangerous the situation is and endure the impacts from the explosion made by the hijacker. The second step is emotional well-being. The passenger experience fear, panic and trauma. For example, some women are seen crying and trying to stop their spouses from getting involved in fighting the hijacker. Others choose to obey the hijacker's instruction in order to stay alive.
Now I will explain the hero, villain and the ethical dilemmas in Hijack 1971. First, the hero is Tae-in, a former fighter pilot who bravely steps up during the hijacking to protect the passengers. He faces an ethical dilemma where he must choose between following the hijacker's orders to avoid immediate harm or resisting them to stop the hijacking. If he obeys, the passengers may be safe temporarily, but he is not doing what is morally right. However, if he resists, he risks causing panic or even loss of lives. So his dilemma is between self-survival and his moral duty to protect others. Next, the villain is Yongdae, the leader of the hijackers, who takes control of the plane to achieve his own goals. His ethical dilemma is whether to continue the hijacking or stop it. If he continues, he can achieve his mission, but he harms innocent passengers. If he stops, he protects lives, but fails his goal. This shows a conflict between self-interest and moral responsibility. Overall, both characters face difficult choices, but their decisions reflect very different moral values.
Next, I will explain teleological ethics in villain's action to the movie Hijack 1971. Teleological ethics is a moral theory that judges whether an action is right or wrong based on its consequences. In this theory, an action is considered ethical if it produces the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Under teleological ethics, there are two key ideas: utilitarianism, which focuses on maximizing overall happiness, and hedonism, which focuses on personal benefit or self-interest. In Hijack 1971, the villain Yonde hijacks an airplane to escape his situation and gain personal freedom. His action is mainly driven by self-interest, which reflects hedonism as he prioritizes his own benefit without considering others. From a teleological perspective, we evaluate his action based on their consequences. First, his action causes harm to many people. The hijacking puts the life of passengers and crew at a serious risk, creating fear, danger, and possible injury. These negative consequences affect a large number of innocent individuals. Second, Yonde prioritizes his self-interest over the collective good. While he may gain personal freedom, many others are placed in danger. From a utilitarian perspective, the harm causes to many people is far greater than the benefit gained by one person. In conclusion, although Yonde's actions reflect hedonisms, they are considered unethical from a utilitarian point of view because they result in more harm than benefit and do not achieve the greatest good for the greatest number of people.
Next, I will explain the hero's action based on deontology. Deontology is an ethical theory that focuses on doing what is morally right based on rules and duties, regardless of the outcome. In this movie, Tae-in demonstrates deontological ethics through his actions. Even in a dangerous situation, he chooses to protect the passengers because he believes it is his duty. Firstly, he prioritizes saving others instead of thinking about his own safety. Secondly, he remains calm and responsible, not because he knows he will succeed, but because he feels morally obligated to act. Lastly, his decisions are guided by what is right, not what is easy or beneficial. This shows that Tae-in follows strong moral principles such as responsibility and protecting others. In conclusion, his actions are considered ethical under deontology because he acts based on duty and moral values, not on the consequences.
Golden rule is a principle that encourages a person to interact with others in an ethical and moral manner. It is usually stated as treated others as you would like to be treated. The first golden rule is respect for others. The ethical action to be taken is that we will not hijack an airplane and endanger the passengers for our own benefit. We should act by considering the safety of others just as we would not want to be harmed ourselves. In this film, Yonde clearly violates this principle when he is willing to hurt and threaten the life of innocent passengers for his own benefit. Therefore, as ethical individuals, we should avoid any action that could harm others even in difficult circumstances. Secondly, the next golden rule is compassion and seeking help appropriately. We would look for better ways to solve problems. In Yonde's situation, he can seek help from the relevant authorities. Through this channel, he can receive support to rebuild his life without harming others. Furthermore, any important golden rule is the care of others' well-being. If we were in the villain's shoes, we need to consider the impact of our actions on others because we also expect others to ensure our safety. In this film, Yonde ignores the other's safety while Tae-in, a co-pilot, shows high moral values by prioritizing their safety. Therefore, as ethical individuals, we must always be responsible and careful in making decisions so as not to harm others. Finally, we will control our emotion and not act impulsively even when under pressure. This action reflects the moral value of self-control, which is the ability to control our emotions and think rationally. In Yonde's situation, he acted extremely without considering the consequences for others. If we were in his place, we would calm ourselves down and think rationally before taking any action. Next, if we were in Yonde's shoes, we would feel very guilty for endangering innocent passengers when he exploded a bomb on the plane, injuring the passengers, the pilot, and the cabin crew. After that, we would also feel regret when we realize that the situation led to villain's death and causing serious injuries to Tae-in, who tried to protect the passengers from the final explosion of the bomb. Next, I feel regret as the passengers remain traumatized even after rescue. In addition, we would feel ashamed for hijacking the cockpit and threatening the pilot to change the flight direction to North Korea. Despite his personal reasons, his actions were inappropriate as they put everyone on the plane in danger. Moving on, there are several lessons that we have learned from this movie review. Firstly, we learned that not all situations have a clear right or wrong answer. In desperate situations, every choice has risk. This shows that we need to choose the option that will cause the least harm to others. In this film, Tae-in refused to shoot the engine of a plane heading to North Korea, even though he was ordered to do so because he worried about the passengers' safety. Secondly, following orders without thinking may have bad impacts. When Tae-in was in the Air Force, he was once punished by disobeying orders, but his actions actually saved the life of passengers in the hijacking incident. If Tae-in just followed strict orders without assessing the situation, the life of all passengers might be in danger. This shows that orders are not always right and self-consideration is important. Thirdly, true leadership becomes clear during a crisis. In a panic situation when the plane was attacked by a bomb threat, Tae-in remained calm and tried to control the situation despite being injured in his leg. He made important decisions such as trying to land and ultimately choosing a crash landing to save the passengers. This proved that a good leader is not judged when situations are easy, but when they are under great pressure. Lastly, sacrifice for others comes at significant price. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you.